Welcome, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple seconds to allow attendees to join the webinar. Okay, welcome. My name is Anna, and it's my pleasure as the Assistant Director of Constituent Relations to welcome you all to this 49er Industry Chat. Before we start, we'd just like to remind you that the session is being recorded and it will be available on demand at our website, csulb.edu/alumni. Once it's posted, feel free to share it with a friend, fellow alumni, or someone you know that might benefit from this chat. We also encourage you to use the Q&A box to submit questions for our guest speaker. My colleague Rosalinda, who's our alumni program specialist, will help moderate the chat during this webinar. And now I would like to introduce our alumni host, Carlos Mendez. I'll go ahead and quickly read his bio before we jump in. So Carlos was born in Mexico City and has been residing in Los Angeles since the age of 3. He's a first-generation college graduate who received his bachelor's degree in film and television from Cal State Long Beach in 2016. He has dedicated his filmography to telling stories of the undocumented community, founding UndocuCinema, an organization advocating for undocumented artists in film and television. His award-winning work includes documentaries Con Máscaras y Sin Papeles, Sin Riaz, La Pared Humana, and stop-motion animation Encaged Love, all recognized at film festivals and featured in Univision, Telemundo, EFE, and La Opinión. His film Monarca premieres next year. As both director and producer, Carlos has worked on live television, sport events, animation, and commercials for McDonald's and the BMO Stadium. He directs music videos for artists like La Santa Cecilia and Carlos y Charlos, and he also serves with Latinx in animation, advocating for inclusion across all facets of cinema. Carlos, thank you so much for being here today, and would you like to introduce yourself and say hello?
Yes, thank you so much. The introduction is there, and I'm Carlos Mendez. I was born in Mexico City. I reside here in in LA since 3 years of age, and so just been carrying on my career as best as possible as I can with whatever resources I have available. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here and give any advice that I can to upcoming filmmakers, creators, artists that are coming up.
Amazing. So we can just jump into the first question, where if you want to talk a little bit more about your background on your experiences, what led you to Cal State Long Beach, and while you were here, what was your student experience like? Did you participate in any clubs or activities? Did you have any jobs on campus?
Yeah, I think well, my pursuit of education was always a little bit more difficult because again, I never got financial aid, so everything was just paying out of pocket. I remember having 2 to 3 jobs at times just to have the semester paid. So there was times where I had to skip a semester, save money, and then get the money necessary for the upcoming semester, uh, pay for whatever books, whatever things that I needed, equipment or whatever. So that was always a thing, and not only at the Cal State level, it was I came from community college Santa Monica, and that was the same situation. So it was always trying to push my education forward as best as I could. And yeah, I started pursuing film. It was sort of like a rebellion sort of move because I was sort of studying engineering at the time, and I was doing aerospace
Oh, wow.
engineering, and it sounded so nice. It was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go and build rockets and work for NASA
Hmm.
and do all these things. And it sort of becomes like this thing with I guess your parents and your family, and it's sort of like they migrated here, and so you wanna the only option is either you become an engineer, you become a doctor, and that's it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it was just like it came to the point where I was in the math lab like 24/7, and I was doing physics and calculus and doing all this stuff, and I was just like exhausted. I was like, I can't. This isn't passionate to me. This isn't something I see myself doing for the rest of my life. Um, so I stood up and I was like, nope. You know what? I want to tell stories. I want to represent my gente. I want to create cartoons. I want to create narrative. I want to create stories. And so I told my parents this, and they were like, nah, you know?
Oh
So
my gosh, yeah.
and it was sort of like a moment where I had to prove my worth and prove that I really had what it takes to be in this field and in this career. And I remember specifically that kind of happened at Cal State Long Beach, where there was a festival called Campus Movie Fest,
Okay.
and so I was given a camera and a laptop, very Panasonic, small camera, and then your laptop with all the editing programs. Again, this is me transferring from Santa Monica. I didn't have a crew. I didn't know too much about all these things that you can, build with a crew or have
Right.
editing software. I had no idea about none of that. So I did a short in that week, and it was a documentary, and it was about homeless people and how, this woman would put her whole life inside a cart, and we use the shopping cart to just sort of like go shopping, and that's all we look at it as. But for her, it was her entire life in this
Mm.
cart. So it was a 5 minute short. It was done so quickly. I had no crew. One of my friends, I asked him if he could help me edit, and I slept over. The day after was like my birthday, and I completely forgot about it. I submit the film. I tell my professor I'm not going to be able to attend class because there's a festival for the campus, and I want to see if anything happens. So, everything came up, awards, screenings came up, and from like I don't know, maybe like 80 films, they choose like 15 top. My film came up, and I was
Wow.
so excited. Like I was like, no way. I hugged the person next to me. I was like, oh my god, my film is up there. That's great. Little did I know about like best picture, best actress, best actor, best comedy, and I was like, what's all this about? And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm already excited. My film, already screened. Um, the point of all this is just like the film finishes the festival, gets the awards, and they call best picture, and my name gets called.
Oh my goodness.
No way, right? So then the newspaper of the school came, the radio from the school came. They gave me a little T-shirt that said "Winner, Best Picture," and then I got to compete, with universities, and I got to showcase that little piece of art that I did, and I kind of showed my parents that this is
Hmm.
it, this is what I want to do. Look at if this is an example of like the stuff that I can continue to do. And so it was just like that. And sort of like, as a parent, they were like, oh, with your aunts and uncles, like, oh, look at my son. He came out of the
Yes, showing you off.
so yeah. And so it just sort of like this whole moment that just clicked there. And from then on, I've been consistent. And it is not an easy career, but if as long as you're very passionate about what you're doing and telling, I think it's always rewarding to see that you could represent not only your family but your gente, your culture, and continue to do that in different realms.
Wow, what an amazing story. Yes, sounds like you kind of just fell into that industry and field of study.
Yeah.
So, can you highlight some challenges you may have faced early on in your career, especially having to learn about how that industry works, and how did you overcome some of those?
Yeah, I think if we start from school purposes, I think it was hard to sometimes see that I was the only Latino in some of these courses, and so it was very hard to sometimes click or like have the same perspective, or like when you want to tell a story directly from your culture and it's not something anybody else can relate to, it's sort of hard. It was very difficult at times in those realms or in those classrooms. Outside of school, I think it sort of becomes like, okay, I got my diploma, okay, I finished this, but then you start realizing that you're in the real world and that you have to figure out how to approach the industry, where do you want to start? What do you want to do? Sort of set little goals and just be
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I could sort of manage this. And if I do that, that's going to open this other door. And if that door opens, then I can go to this and that. So it's sort of like thinking strategically and not being afraid to speak up and asking for favors and just understanding that, whatever happens, it's going to be for the benefit of you as an artist. So if there is no's along the way, then you'd be like, okay, well, I'll just move on and create another opportunity or create my own opportunity. um, yeah, I think it's just a matter of just understanding exactly what you want, and whether it is you coming out of school and you're wanting to direct films, and then you say, you know what, I don't want to be an editor, I don't want to be a PA, I don't want to be a producer, then that sort of closes those opportunities for you to even become that director, because you cannot come out of school saying that that's all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna direct.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way. And understand that you're gonna have to do what would sound weird, but did you have to do free work? You have to do low budget work. You have to put your time and show people that you're interested in whatever project that you're working on, and show them that you're there with a good attitude, and that you're there for the benefit of the execution of whatever project you're working on. So just understanding all these things. And yeah, there's a lot of other things I can talk about, but it's just.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, it sounds like you have kind of not necessarily a consistent schedule. So what would a typical day kind of look like in your role?
Yeah, depending on what projects we're tackling right now. Since, for example, we just wrapped up the commercial for McDonald's at Hola Mexico, that was a very intense deadline. So I was a producer for that, and we sort of had to make sure that our animators were doing the work, that their timeline was correct, that our animatic was consistent with whatever deliverables and time that we needed for the 30-second commercial, as part of
Oh my
like
gosh. Yeah.
yeah, just putting like any specific notes that they had back into the edit was very intense, because animation just takes way too long. So then we were very critical about like, okay, make sure that whatever notes that they have, we make them happen and they're clear, so that it gets approved on time, because 2 weeks is not a lot of time for a 30-second commercial. And for the quality that we did, it was very high. Other projects, for feature films, that are maybe live action, for example, again, just organizing budgets and sheets, and just making sure that the locations are set, that we have the permits, that we have insurance for equipment. And when I'm directing, that's a whole different realm, where it's like I do worry about the producing side because it's always there. But as a director, you have to make sure that your actors are prepared, make sure everybody
Mm.
knows their lines, make sure that you have your equipment set, that you have a good visual of what it is your setting or your shot going to be like. And if you're, making sure that nobody is getting hurt or in danger of, whatever
Right.
composition that you're trying to create. Um, and when it's not that, then let's say a music video, same thing, a little bit more visuals. Sort of understanding that your artist has a specific view of how they want to look. So just making sure that they're okay with how the image is coming out, making sure that we do have feedback or like a playback for it. And there's just so many in different realms. The commercial that we did, that I got to direct for the BMO Stadium, that was a food commercial. So then, making sure that the item, which is the torta in the situation, makes it look very nice and clean, and that your client is going to be happy, because this is an image that's going to be projected on a big screen. And so
Mhm.
making sure that the video looks high res, and deliverables as far as resolution and content and sound are clean. So it always depends on the project that we're working on. There's just different hats that you have to put on, uh, depending on what it is.
Oh, wow. Sounds like so much diversity in that film and television space for sure for people. And so you kind of mentioned uh, being a minority in this field. what advice would you give others who have similar backgrounds, who are looking into being a filmmaker, how to overcome those types of challenges maybe you experienced?
Yeah, I think it's always hard when you're a minority, I guess, to some degree, but it's just finding the right people, finding your crew. I think for anybody who's in school right now, is just finding those people who will continue to collaborate with you after graduation, and you know, be as productive as you can with what you have in hand. Is like what they say: if you're gonna write a script, don't add a helicopter because you obviously don't have budget for that. So just look at exactly what you have in hand, and use that to your advantage. Yeah, so I think just make sure that you have something to say. Make sure that you, whatever you believe in, you're putting it out there. People want to see what you can create, and be as creative as possible with it. You know, I've worked in stop motion animation before, and I did my first short with, you know, armatures, playing with like clay, playing with like cables and putting them together, and playing with different materials, and cardboard boxes, and just painting them and using blue screen, green screen. And then people loved it, and then they got into festivals, and it was just sort of like me sort of showing everybody else that you could create something with almost nothing. And I think, you know, it's, as a minority, if you have something to say, use that as your superpower to stand out from everybody else.
Amazing. And we just got a question in the chat. What do you want to focus on, or can you identify one thing you can do to assist students that might reach out to you?
For example, with UndocuCinema, we do get a bunch of high school students that do reach out. So sometimes what happens is that we have either a meeting at school with their counselor, or sometimes I do get to just message them directly. What I always recommend anybody who's starting off, and what they can probably do, if it's at their disposal, is create a short film. I think it's very necessary for them to just start showing the world what they can provide as an artist, and that way those doors will eventually start to open. I give feedback, and I sort of just guide them in as best as way as possible. I try to be as realistic as I can, and I know sometimes that can be very hurtful, but
Right.
it's sort of just like, you know, it's being realistic to some degree, and just letting them know that at this level, and whatever they are in, you know, this is the reality. And but that doesn't mean you can push yourself up forward, with the right idea, concept, or people, or resources later on. So it's just
Mhm.
sort of like being there for them. We are working on a scholarship for up and
Amazing.
coming creatives, that's in the high school or in a community school level. Anybody who is pursuing film, that being, you know, whether it's minority, or mainly focusing on like Latino or cultural based aspects. But yeah, sort of just doing that, and I always have my doors open. With Latinx in animation, which I'm an organization part of, we've been together for 6 years, and that tends to happen a lot. So anybody who knows about Latinx in animation, they know that we sort of branch out to students and to any creatives that are finishing college. And so we look at their portfolios. We sort of like give them guidance in that sense. We push them to go to venues with like Netflix. We used to have Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. And we sort of have venues where Guillermo del Toro, Jorge Gutierrez, and sort of all these big names are already there. And they sort of give a presentation, they do a Q&A, and that's very rewarding to see that we can continue to do those type of events, and give advice and guidance to upcoming creatives.
Oh, that is so amazing to give them that opportunity and teach them. Yes, they might not be able to afford the helicopter now,
Yeah,
possibly in the future.
exactly.
And can you explain how film can be used as a tool for advocacy or social change, since that's some of the themes that you currently do in your work?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's always been that it could be different for every filmmaker. or creative. But from what I've approached, it's always been because I either have something to say, or for example, the film that I did coming out of school, I couldn't vote, I can't vote, so I did a film about what would happen if the current president would become president, and now he's president. So we see families getting torn apart. We see kids being separated from the families. We see a lot of things that I kind of showcased in that short film, just sort of because I couldn't vote and I wanted to showcase others that you could push yourself to create something and still speak your mind, and let other people be motivated to create some sort of change. Um, and it did impact a lot of people, and it did come out in like the news and newspapers, but it was my movement, and it was something that I was very happy to at least provide for my community. Unfortunately, that's something that we're currently living, and it's not something I'm happy to see. But we are constantly using our art for resistance, and I
Mhm.
think it's always necessary to continue to speak up, whether if it's in movies or shorts or in your paintings or your music. I think it releases your stress, and it helps others, relieve that pain that they might have inside, and sort of motivate them to continue for a positive change in the near future or in their lives in general.
Yeah, amazing. Using it as a tool to amplify your voice.
Yeah.
And we also just got another question in the chat. How can we help spread the word about our great Latino, Chicano, Mexicano filmmakers?
Yes, I think if you have any friends who are creating stuff, please. I think it's so minimal, but it's just like the easiest thing. Share their work, tag them on your stories. So if you can, if they do a GoFundMe or Indiegogo or any campaign, if you don't have a lot of money, give them $20, whatever you can, so that you can continue to uplift them. If you see that they're going to festivals, go and support their movie, go and see them. I think being a cheerleader for any of your creatives that you may know, I think it's very important, because sometimes you get to see their their success, but there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of stuff that sometimes people deal with, and I think just having that little support, as guidance, as a cheer, as a clap, I think it goes a long way. And yeah, just be there for your creative, your local creative, and yeah, don't be afraid to share their work. It's always good to do that.
Amazing. And you mentioned, if you're facing those challenges and obstacles, how do you stay motivated and inspired to keep creating during those processes?
Yeah, just hanging out with the right community, who is as hungry as you are. There, for me personally, we far apart from Latinx in animation, which is a great organization that we have. We also, I've been a part of Hola Mexico Film Festival, and there's this program called Tomorrow Filmmakers Today, and it's basically a community of creatives who are creating shorts about anything and everything, and sort of just we have like a 2 week camp session with each other, and it sort of just becomes a family. And they do it every year with different filmmakers, creatives, and it's that idea of just like finding your group, and throwing back each other's ideas, and like connect with those people who are gonna motivate you to do more, and
Mhm.
even in your talent. That's surrounding yourself with that type of people is very crucial in your creative process as a filmmaker or as a storyteller.
And how would you recommend people to do that? Like, were you ever hesitant to take that first step to join those types of groups, especially if you don't know anyone? What
Yeah,
kind of advice would you give students
yeah.
or alumni?
It's hard if you are scared. I think I sometimes what happens is that we get too much of in our heads, and we're like, oh, but I've only done this short, and it's maybe
Mhm.
not good, and it's like, so then you become your own self-critic, and it's very hurtful. So just forget about that, put all those things to the side, give yourself the respect as a creative to just apply to these scholarships, mentorships, internships, whatever it is available for you. I think every step counts. So I think it's and you get to see it a lot in animation where it's like they criticize their art too much and they're afraid to just showcase it to the world, and it's just like, no, this is very nice, this is very unique, this is different than whatever everybody else is doing, and just embrace that part of you, embrace the uniqueness that you have and and your word that you have to say, because you're your own voice and not everybody's going to have that story the way you want to tell. So it's important to understand that you're a very unique human being and that everything you have to say or tell with your narrative, it's going to stand out.
Great advice.
Yeah.
And so, you mentioned possibly looking into those ways to network. Were there any internships or opportunities you did while you were a student at Cal State Long Beach that you would recommend?
I if the festival, the campus movie festival is still there, I would recommend that you do that. And if that festival is not there, definitely just look into some of them that might be open to students. Also, get an internship. I think that was one of the things that I didn't get to do again because started paying in school and not having all the time and but like I think it's so crucial and beneficial for anybody who is going through this process if they could get their hands dirty in a studio realm, because you get to see how everything works, you get to see the demand, you get to see um, unfortunately the egos, you get to see
Right.
everything, you get to see everything, and I think it's important that you understand what you're getting yourself into coming out of school while you're in school, because then that sort of like opens your mind and it makes you understand where you want to continue your route.
Okay. And maybe a contradicting question, but what role do you think artificial intelligence should be in the filmmaking field? And has AI changed your approach in any of your work?
Mm. AI is a whole different element. It's an entire different thing, I guess, that we're gonna have to deal with, and we just have to see where it's gonna end because it's literally unwrapping and very fast. And I think if anything, if we continue to use or think of using AI, we should look at it as a tool and not sort of a human replacement for creativity. There is a word on the street, in which case we'll have three different types of Hollywoods, which we have the indie Hollywood, we have the high budgeted, blockbuster films, and then we have the AI Hollywood.
Oh my goodness.
You're going to be able to choose whatever content you want to consume, but I personally love that I can see someone's soul be projected on screen, whether if it's in their acting, whether it's in their voice, whether it's in their art, and I don't appreciate a machine doing a copy paste of what we are. And again, it's gonna all depend on the person, but me personally, I would always advocate for human art.
Thank you for that. And we just got another question in the chat. Where can we find your work?
Yeah, you can follow my journey and some of the tags and work at my Instagram. It's filming for change, and then we also have DocuCinema also on Instagram altogether. And you can also follow us on Latinx in Animation, and you can see all the events that we have there. Yeah, so there's a little bit of work there, and there's different links to a little bit of everything that we've done. And yeah, if you have any questions or concerns or any interest in some of the projects that we do, feel free to DM me directly, and I'll be happy to reach out.
And then looks like we have another question. Has there ever been a time when you had a work assignment that conflicted with your personal values? And if so, how did you handle that?
Okay. There's been pitches and there's been opportunities of work like that. where it's like it's demeaning a community, it's demeaning a certain centered group of people, and so then maybe like the check looks nice or whatever, but as someone who sort of like has their values kind of up there, I kind of reject those projects. Sometimes people wouldn't do that. Sometimes people would, be okay with just the check. But again, it all comes to your own principles, attitudes, values, and beliefs in which you want to take upon sort of like the projects that you want to take upon. But yeah, when those things come up, I either stand up and say something about them, if I have the position to do so, and if I don't, then I'm not involved in those projects in any shape or form.
Thank you for using your voice.
Yeah.
And some other questions that we have are, how important do you think mentorship is in this industry? Do you have any? And, do you even have any mentees currently that you're helping?
Yeah. Unfortunately, my high school teacher passed away a few years back. He was
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
and so I think just having someone who can, again, be your cheerleader, believe in you, guide you, and sort of just be that friend that you can just like throw all your thoughts to, or insecurities to. It's very healthy, and have that relationship vice versa, right? Where it's like you can help each other. It's not just for me, but for both of you, and that could come in different ways. Professors would be that too for anybody who is currently studying or doing their field work. And yeah, just find those healthy relationships, in which case will guide you along the way. I do have mentees, and I do get, again, a lot of those students who are interested in making art and doing films. And it's I remember just right now, out of the top of my head, like teaching a stop motion class, and all these kids were around 15 years old. So it was just like very nice to see how hungry and passionate they were about stuff, and creating stories in this medium, and just like, sort of still guiding them, and just be like, hey, Carlos, I did this. What do you think of that? And just like give them feedback, and just telling them, well, you could sort of do the frame rate a little better, or the lighting a little better, or maybe now you could tackle the full short, or etc. So it's always nice to pay it forward in whatever level that you can. I think it all comes back to you eventually.
Yes, the pay it forward mentality. I love that. And so, what advice would you give 49ers that are interested in making a career in this industry?
Yeah, I think it's important that you tell your stories. Don't be afraid. Ask for help. And understand that if you're getting into this field, you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it because you want to be famous. You're not doing it because you want to get rich. And be as nice as possible with everyone on set or in whatever project that you're working on. For anybody who is Latino, personally, I could say, and is pursuing this field, everybody knows each other. So
Oh,
everybody knows
amazing.
whether you're a good worker, whether you're a pain in the butt. But like if you're very passionate and you're very committed and you're very talented and whatever, people are gonna know. So make sure you keep that in mind whenever you're starting off and coming into this field outside of school. And again, it's my team, crazy, but again, everybody is like one ratio away from the other, so they know if they want you in their team. So yeah.
Well, I might be biased, but I think all of our alumni are hardworking and wonderful people.
100%.
And
Yes.
it looks like we got another question. So they asked, you've centered your filmography on telling stories of undocumented community. How do you balance the responsibility of authentic representation with your creative vision, especially when dealing with such sensitive subject matter?
Yeah, I think it becomes a sort of personal experience level here. It's not something that I'm just like, oh, well, let me start talking about this subject matter because it looks cool. It's just something I've been living with my entire
Mhm.
life. So I know how to pinpoint this subject matter correctly. Um, because it just is, and that's how it's always been. But I could definitely see that happening if I start choosing, I don't know, some um, global warming or something that I'm probably just not 100% in educated to some degree. But yeah, it's crucial and it's very important for anybody when whatever subject matter that you're doing that you get your facts right and correct, because at the end of the day, people are gonna see your story and they want to make sure that whatever it is you're giving them, it's is viable and people can definitely take in, and you'll get that same credibility in every other project that you work in. Yeah, and it could be hard, but for this specific subject matter, at least for me, it's always been because of my own personal experience.
Yeah, that lived experience really helps create that level of trust with the audience. Okay, well, I don't know if we have any more questions in the chat. So looks like we might be able to just thank Carlos for joining us today. Once again, you'll be able to visit the alumni website in the weeks ahead where we'll post this recorded session. And you'll also be able to see some other scheduled upcoming virtual events that we have as well. So once again, please make sure to follow Carlos. We'll share his social media handles if they are not already in the chat, and follow him on LinkedIn. Check out a lot of his work that he's doing. Reshare, help him help support the Latinx community. And thank you. And go Beach.
Go Beach.